Hey everyone, welcome back. So you've decided you want to get an S-Class, an old one like this. Maybe you've seen The Last Dance and you want to be like Mike. Whether that's Michael Jordan or maybe you want to be like Mike Tyson or even 50 Cent. Anyway, whoever you're trying to emulate aside, today I'm going to show you around what you should look out for on one of these. And I'll probably run through common issues in a separate video. So let's get into it. You have a number of engine options. For me personally, I'd pick the 320, which is a good straight six from Mercedes, proven over time. It's an M104 code. Or you have the 5-litre V8, the 500, or the 600. Those would be my pick. And the 320 is about 230 brake horsepower, straight six as I mentioned. And if you want to go a bit quicker, you can pick the 5-litre V8 M117 engine, which is the one here. And if you want to go even quicker than that, you can pick the 600. But for me personally, the 500 is probably a good balance, because for the 600 you'd be spending a lot more on maintenance. It has a lot more control units and generally will probably cost you a lot more in petrol as well. If I had to pick between a 320 and a 500, I probably wouldn't hesitate to pick a 320, especially if it was in better condition or had a few extra options that I might want. Although at the age that these cars are at now, I'd probably pick a 500 over a 320 just because of the factor of appreciation into the future, especially if you're planning on keeping a longer term. You'll probably have to do the same maintenance on a 320 bar the engine as you would on a 500. So, control units, the heater blower motor, other things which are standard across all of the models. You'll have to maintain that either way. So the cost saving you might have on the initial purchase price of a 320 versus a 500 might be just completely outweighed if you're keeping it long term, because the appreciation will cover that difference in the future, and you'll have to do the same maintenance on both of them. So you might as well go for the 500. But like I said, I wouldn't discount a good 320, especially if you're trying to run it on a budget. Although if you're looking at fuel economy between the 320 and the 500, honestly, I wouldn't bother. It's not great either way. It's a 2.2 ton car and the engine has to work hard either way to lug it around. And having had the 280, the 320 and the 500, honestly, I've not noticed a massive difference in the amount I spend on petrol. Not that I've actually gone out and calculated it in detail, but up to me in the real world it seems negligible. So let's talk other options you have on the car. Obviously colour, that's your preference. I do like the more eccentric colours. Azurite blue is really nice, but as you can imagine, a lot of them come in silver or black or maybe champagne. You'll have the option of a long wheelbase or a short wheelbase, and the long wheelbase basically has an extra 10 centimeters on this rear door, which gives you a bit extra legroom for your rear passengers. But again, that's for you to weigh up. I certainly wouldn't discount a short wheelbase option. I suppose it depends on how often you're going to have passengers in the car. Right, interior options. You have the rear electric blind, which, in all honesty, I've never used it in a specific scenario. So I wouldn't go out searching for a car that has that. A fridge, which actually fits behind the armrest there. The only time I'd probably find that useful is on a long road trip, and that isn't happening very often. So If you really want one of those, I'd probably consider retrofitting one, and you can obviously justify the price based on how often you're going to be using it. Heated seats, you'll come across those in a lot of cars, especially for the front. The rear is less so. And again, it depends how often you're going to have passengers and whether you actually care about their comfort. Depending on where you are, I'd certainly look for a car which has front heated seats at least. Rear, probably not so much. Another option is rear reclining seats. Again, you probably won't come across these often, and I wouldn't go searching for them. Depends on how often you're going to have passengers in the car. If you really wanted them, again, it's one of those things you can look at retrofitting. Interior-wise, you could get cloth, velour, leather, and the more luxurious option was Napa leather. The most common options you'll come across are black leather or cream leather, and for me personally, I'd pick the black leather interior, as you can see here. To me, it looks less dated of the two. Most cars came with electric seats, which includes lumbar support and this little headrest button as well. And you can see the lumbar settings down there. It actually fills up a little air bladder in the back of the seat there. You could also get memory options, and it's pretty handy if you're going to be sharing the car with other people. But personally, I wouldn't bother searching for it because I don't share this car too often, and once you've got the driver's seat set, that's it. You don't really use the electric seats after that. And the passengers don't really mess with the electric seats either. Usually they'll just jump in and that's it. You'll come across cars where they have the telephone option or even a sat-nav option. The sat-nav probably isn't as common because, as you can imagine, back in those days, the sat-nav option was quite expensive. And the telephone option, to be honest, in this day and age is going to be useless because it only works on an old network. So again, both things I wouldn't go searching for. If you really want the sat-nav, obviously you can fit your own. The early cars from 91 to 99 actually had a marker which would come out from the corner of the car off vacuum, whereas the later cars, like this one here, has Parktronic, which is the Mercedes version of parking sensors basically, but you had to pay extra for these, and you can get them optioned for the rear and the front. All of the early cars came with those markers which would pop out as you put the car in reverse, whereas on the late cars, as I've mentioned, you'd have to option these parking sensors. Again, for me, the parking sensors on a late car are a nice to have. I wouldn't pass up a good example of a car just because it didn't have these rear parking sensors, but it is a big car, so it does come in quite handy. Another option is the soft close, which is actually one of the features I would try to look for. And it sounds stupid, but once you get used to this car with soft close, you get kind of lazy, and when you step into a car that doesn't have that, you realize how good you've had it, I suppose. Now, it can be problematic if it goes wrong. There's a pump in the boot which basically fits behind this bit of trim, and as you can imagine, it has masses of vacuum lines coming out of it, which drives the soft close on the boot and all four doors. So make sure it works. Another thing you'll have to decide is whether you go for an early car, which is between 91 to 95, or a late car, which is 96 to 99. And to be honest, I'm going to make this really easy. I'd pick a late car because a lot of the issues had been sorted, and one of the major ones is the wiring harness, which likes to degrade while it's still in the car. So that's not an issue on the cars between 96 and 99. Although if you do happen to find a good example of an early car, from what I've seen, the DIY of changing the engine wiring harness isn't too bad. But obviously you'd still have to factor in the cost of the wiring harness and your time. I think the wiring harness is about £200 to £300 if I remember right. So obviously if you've found a car that needs the engine wiring harness doing, factor that in. And one way to check is just work your way back from the injectors, the cables, and look for a label with a date on it. If it's anything past 96, 97, it's probably fine. Although if it's been changed, it probably will have been changed much later. So there's a load of options I haven't covered, which you're less likely to come across. There's ADS, which is adaptive damping system. There's auto wipers, which have a sensor just at the top of the windscreen there. There's obviously wheel options, but I've left that out as you can obviously change those to your preference. And audio options again, which you can upgrade if you'd like. Apparently you could get xenon headlights on these, but I've never seen them in the UK or come across a car for sale with them. So in conclusion, for me personally, I'd be picking a late 96 to 99 car with the black leather interior, heated front seats, soft close, and Parktronic, which, like I said, I'm not too precious about, but it's a good feature to have. Let me know down in the comments below what options you'd be picking, and if you found this video useful, make sure you hit that like button. Like I said, I'll be doing a common issues video following on from this, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and until next time.